I am His Honour, Judge Peter Rook, and these are my sentencing remarks. Akhtar Dogar, Anjem Dogar, Kamar Jamil, Mohammed Karar, Bassam Karar. You have been found guilty by a jury of a series of sexual crimes of the utmost gravity. The offences involved the exploitation and abuse of young, highly vulnerable girls in the Oxford area over a long period. In my sentencing remarks, I propose to give each of the victims anonymous initials reflecting the order of the counts on the indictment: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. There are many aggravating features. On occasions, the depravity was extreme. You targeted young girls because they were vulnerable, underage, and out of control. They tended to have troubled upbringings and unsettled home lives. You subjected them to repeated abuse. This was a pattern which repeated itself over and over again. With the exception of child CD, the offences took place over long periods. Each victim was groomed, coerced, and intimidated to facilitate the commission of the offences and to make the likelihood of them ever reporting them remote. This involved planning. You would build up their trust, providing them with drink, drugs, and the attention that they craved. The effect was that some complainants became addicted to drugs, whilst others had an existing habit hardened. You would develop power over the children, which would drive a wedge between them and their parents. If a girl showed reluctance, you would enforce compliance with threats and brutality. In some cases, it may not have been day-to-day control, but you were in a position to enforce your power over them when you wanted to do so. Each of the first 4 complainants felt both fear and misguided loyalty to you. They were reluctant to tell the authorities what you were doing to them. Police and social services missed several telltale signs. Their sexualised behaviour was misunderstood. No doubt you committed these terrible crimes in the belief that these girls would never be believed. No doubt this encouraged you to carry on your depraved conduct. We have heard about a subculture in the Cowley Road where there was little moral compass and little or no effort to control. The defence has gone so far as to suggest there was a willful blindness by the authorities. Whether that be right or not, it does not in any way justify your actions. The complainants. Each of these 6 young girls have shown enormous courage in coming to the Old Bailey to give evidence. 1, knowing that they would be accused of lying. 2, knowing they would have to relive their ordeals. 3, knowing that they have not been believed by the authorities in the past. The jury has found that they came to this court to tell the truth. It is to be hoped that their courage in coming forward to give evidence has not only exposed your activities, but will send a message to and act as a deterrent to others who are tempted to act in this way. Furthermore, it is to be hoped that lessons will be learnt and that the appropriate authorities will not fail in the future to take appropriate action in the face of evidence of such activities. I wish to begin by considering the impact of your actions upon your victims and their families, as there can be no doubt that you have blighted their lives and robbed them of their adolescence. There can be no doubt that your activities have caused them immense psychological harm. In some instances, you have put their parents through many days of torment and distress. The child, AB. At various stages, she was the victim of 3 of you: Akhtar Dogar, Anjum Dogar, Kamir Jamil. I've read victim statements from AB's parents and a victim personal statement from AB herself. AB writes that since her abuse began, she has suffered ongoing emotional and psychological issues. She has been diagnosed with post-traumatic distress disorder and suffers from bouts of anxiety and depression as a result of this. She suffers from self-loathing. She has difficulties in relationships. She has completely lost self-confidence. She missed out on much of her education from the start of secondary school when she had shown so much early potential. It is a great credit to her that notwithstanding these setbacks, she has 6-7 years afterwards managed to have successful jobs. Her parents' statements and their evidence during the trial have revealed the devastating effect that your actions have had on the family. How the parents looked on as their bright, intelligent, loving, open little girl turned into a sullen, secretive, evasive, and frightened little girl who lost all ambition for the future. Inevitably, they have feelings of anger and guilt. As a result of your actions, their daughter has changed forever. You put not just child AB, but her family through years of sheer torture, depriving child AB of her teenager years. Instead of enjoying a proper family life, they went through years of distress, upset, anger, fear, and helplessness. Her parents were made to feel powerless, whilst their child had become entangled in something truly evil. They recognise that it was your actions that caused this. However, it is hardly surprising that they feel that these emotions were compounded by failures within the social care system, the criminal justice system, and the police service. As a family, they felt isolated, even from their own extended family. And now, child EF. At various stages, she was the victim of the activities of 4 of you: Akhtar Dogar, Anjum Dogar, Mohammed Karar, and Bassam Karar. I have read a victim personal statement from child EF's mother. She says she does not think her daughter will ever get over it. She lost half her childhood and almost all of her secondary education as a result of the abuse she suffered. She has totally changed. She is now ultra fearful and cautious and is unable to enjoy the sorts of activities a young person of her age should be able to. She suffers from nightmares, panic attacks, and flashbacks, and is being treated for depression. Despite being the victim, she carries with her a great burden of shame and embarrassment about what happened. Her courage in giving evidence in this case and having to relive experiences made her so anxious that she had to give up her college course. Her mother was working hard to establish a real bond and win her trust. She did not know she would be struggling against the influence of a gang who used every tactic to turn her against her mother, to the extent that Child EF would be seriously violent towards her if she tried to stand between her and them. Inevitably, your activities took its toll upon her mother, hunting the streets for her night after night and driving all over southern England to pick her up when she surfaced from the latest trafficking episode, took its toll upon her mother emotionally and physically. Threats meant that her mother had to sell their home and flee from Oxford. Akhtar Dogar, Anjem Dogar. Your depraved conduct involved the brutal sexual exploitation of 3 young, vulnerable girls. On occasions, you, Akhtar Dogar and Anjem Dogar, acted with great brutality. Kamir Jamil, you were involved in the exploitation of 2 of those girls. You, Akhtar Dogar, have been convicted of 6 counts against child AB, 1 of vaginal rape, 1 of anal rape, 2 of oral rape, 1 of conspiracy to rape, 1 of arranging child prostitution. You, Anjem Dogar, you have been convicted of 4 counts against child AB. 1 count of oral rape, 1 of vaginal rape, 1 of conspiracy to rape, and 1 of arranging child prostitution. You, Kamir Jamal, have been convicted of 5 counts against child AB. 1 of vaginal rape, 2 of oral rape, 1 of conspiracy to rape, and 1 of arranging child prostitution. You robbed child AB of her early teenage years. You started to abuse her from the time she was 13. It is true, she was already absconding and had taken drugs. You took it to a different level. You targeted her. She was highly vulnerable and easy prey for you. You groomed her with drink, drugs, trinkets, and attention. You well knew her age. You made her feel that she had to comply with your wishes. To enforce your demands, you told her you'd come and burn her house down and burn her little brother. She believed you, and it was always in the back of her mind. Quite apart from using child AB for your own sexual gratification, you coerced her into providing sex to vast numbers of strangers. Up to 4 or 5 men would be invited to addresses so they could have sex with her. Men were brought from Bradford, Leeds, Slough, London. Sometimes the sex would be photographed, no doubt to lure more customers. Men would say they had come a long way to see her. Child AB describes you and the men who would come as having a pack mentality. You were oblivious as to what was happening to her. She became emotionally and physically exhausted. Threats were made to kill her. Your only concerns were your own self-gratification and the satisfaction of your customers so you could achieve commercial gain from arranging for others to abuse her. If she resisted, she would be coerced. Customers would become angry. For instance, if oral sex was required, her head would be pushed down, her hair pulled, and she would be slapped. Strangers would burn her with cigarettes. A stranger almost throttled her. One deliberately scratched her vagina with his nails. One inserted a hairbrush into her vagina. One of the rapes, of which you all 3 have been convicted, relates to the terrifying ordeal to which you subjected child AB at Shotover Woods. This episode provides a graphic example of how you would react if she failed to comply. Child AB pretended she had a period to avoid sex. You, Akhtar, reacted by putting your hand down her trousers so as to check whether this was true. You, Akhtar, Anjum and Kamir Jamil then embarked upon a wicked plan to punish her for lying. At night, you took her to a remote car park up a hill near Shotover Woods. It was pitch black. You ignored her pleading. You made her get down to her knees and forced her to give each of you oral sex. You subjected her to verbal abuse, telling her that she knew what they do to pigs and they were going to cut her throat if she did not comply. It is a clear inference that you had invited others to join you. Another car arrived within 10 to 15 minutes. There were 4 men in that car, and she was made to give oral sex to all 4. She said they were encouraging each other. You then abandoned her. Ironically, so pitiful was the state in which you left her, she had to contact you as she felt there was no one else she could turn to in the circumstances. Your conduct continued until she was 15, over a period of about 2 years, with breaks when she was placed out of the county in the care system. Her mother describes how by that time there was not much left of her apart from aggression. You took her soul. She felt as though it had been ripped out. She hated herself at the time. You put her parents through years of torture. Child CD. Akhtar Dogar, Anjum Dogar, Kamir Jamil. You have all been convicted of 1 count of conspiracy to rape, which relates to providing child CD for penetrative sex with others. You, Akhtar Dogar and Anjum Dogar, have each been convicted of separate counts involving oral rapes by each of you upon child CD. You, Kamir Jamil, apart from conspiracy to rape and 2 counts of rape relating to the same episode, when you, with others, took child CD by car to near a lake. Child CD was a very shy young girl who looked her young age. She was emotionally very immature. She was extremely vulnerable. She was introduced to you by child AB, and you immediately exploited her. All 3 of you would take child CD to various places. Sometimes you would invite other men to come and have sex with her. You would get her drunk before the men had sex with her. True, the offending was shorter than in other cases and lasted less than 7 weeks over the late summer of 2006. Nevertheless, I regard this sexual exploitation as very grave. You, Akhtar Dogar, on one occasion forced her to have sex with you. You, Anjum, pressurised her into giving you oral sex, pulling her head down. You, Akhtar, changed from presenting as nice to becoming threatening, grabbing, pulling her and threatening her with a gun. You, Anjum, also changed from presenting as nice to becoming threatening, saying he had a gun. You, Kamir Jamil, with another man, took child CD in a car to a quiet place near a lake where you raped her first orally and then vaginally. You grabbed her ponytail and forced her head onto your penis. You then raped her vaginally. She felt she had no choice with 2 men in a car in a remote place. You fully participated in these offences. However, I accept from what child CD has said about you, your offences against her were not accompanied by the same brutality as is the case of your co-defendants. Child EF. Akhtar Dogar, Anjum Dogar. You have been convicted of 1 count of conspiracy to rape, one of trafficking and one of arranging child prostitution. Akhtar Dogar. On 3 occasions, you both took child EF to the Nanford guest house to provide sex to men who were strangers to her. You both groomed her for the task by plying her with drugs. No doubt these strangers were your customers, who were paying you for providing child EF. Anjem Dogar, you were acting with your brother on 2 occasions. On a 4th occasion, acting together, you both rang child EF at night, summoning her into your car, where you forced her to give oral sex to one of your customers by pulling her head down onto his penis. You, Anjem Dogar, subjected her to degrading and humiliating verbal abuse at the same time. Akhtar Dogar, you are now aged 29. I accept that you have no previous convictions for sexual offences. I have read references from those who speak well of you. Anjem Dogar, you are now aged 31. Again, I accept that you have no previous convictions for sexual offences. First, I have to consider on the information before me whether each of you are dangerous. In particular, I have to decide whether there is a significant risk to members of the public of serious harm by the commission by you of further specified offences. I have considered cumulatively, 1, the young age of your 3 victims and their vulnerability. 2, the manner in which they were targeted, groomed and abused. 3, the number of strangers who you arranged to come and have sex with them, and the depraved sex that occurred on those occasions. 4, the repeated abuse and the length of time during which it occurred, particularly in the case of child AB. 5, the serious psychological harm your actions have caused. The 3 conspiracies to rape against separate victims were exceptionally grave crimes. Count 10, shot over woods, was an offence involving extreme depravity. In any event, I have concluded your offending is particularly grave and your culpability is particularly high. It follows that in my judgment, in any case, the seriousness is such that a life sentence would have a denunciatory value reflecting of public abhorrence for the crime. The sentences are: Akhtar Dogar, counts 3, 12 and 16, the conspiracies to rape. Life imprisonment with a minimum of 17 years. From this will be deducted the time you have already spent in custody, 460 days. Count 10, 20 years imprisonment, concurrent. Counts 2, 7, 8, 14, 10 years imprisonment, concurrent. Counts 16, 18, 19, 8 years imprisonment, concurrent. The totality of your offending is reflected in the minimum sentences that I have passed. To avoid any misunderstanding, let me make it clear that the minimum sentence of 17 years is the equivalent of determinate sentences of 34 years. Even after serving the minimum sentence, you will only be released if the parole board considers that it is safe to do so. Looking at the overall position as to your culpability and the seriousness of the offences, I see no reason to distinguish between Akhtar Dogar and his older brother, Anjem Dogar. The sentences are: Anjem Dogar, counts 3, 12, 16, the conspiracies to rape. Life imprisonment with a minimum sentence of 17 years. This minimum sentence reflects your overall criminality. It is the equivalent of 34 years determinate imprisonment. The time you have spent already in custody will be deducted from that minimum sentence. It is only after you have served that minimum sentence that the parole board will be entitled to consider whether it is safe to release you. All the other sentences will be concurrent to the life sentences. Counts 2, 15, 10 years imprisonment, concurrent. Count 10, 20 years imprisonment, concurrent. Count 6, 18, 19, 8 years imprisonment, concurrent. Kamar Jamil. Miss O'Neill, QC, on your behalf, has submitted in respect of the offences that 1. You were more of a follower than a prime mover. 2. Your involvement may have arisen particularly because you had access to vehicles. 3. According to child CD at least, your conduct did not become brutal. 4. You voluntarily desisted in September 2006. 5. In your cases, there were 2 victims as opposed to 3 victims in respect of the Dogars. As to your personal mitigation, she has invited me to take account of the fact that 1. You have produced numerous positive references from family and friends. 2. You are a devoted husband and father of 3 children. It is clear to me that there was a significant change in your lifestyle in the years before your arrest for this matter, and you have been taking your family responsibilities seriously. The author of the pre-sentence of the report assesses you as posing a high risk of serious harm to female children aged 11 to 16. I accept that you do pose a significant risk of this at this stage. I now come to consider whether in your case the case is of such exceptional gravity it must be marked with a life sentence. I accept that you were a follower rather than a leader. The leadership role was played by the Dogar brothers. I accept that your conduct was not marked with the same brutality. There were 2 victims rather than 3. There is no evidence of criminal conduct towards either girl after September 2006. Even taking all these matters into account, I consider your conduct was such as to warrant a life sentence. You willingly participated in the 2 conspiracies to rape. In respect of child AB, the conspiracy involved child AB being provided to large numbers of strangers for penetrative sex. These episodes lasted the best part of 2 years. You were fully participating in the group rape at Shotover, designed to humiliate child AB. It follows that in your case, the conspiracies to rape will attract life sentences. The minimum term will reflect your lesser role. The sentences are counts 3 and 12, life imprisonment with a minimum sentence of 12 years. All other sentences will be concurrent to the life imprisonment. The minimum term reflects the totality of your offending. It is the equivalent to a determinate term of 24 years. It is only after you have served that time that the parole board will be entitled to release you if they believe it is safe to do so. Count 10, 16 years. Counts 2, 9, 11A, 11B, 10 years. Counts 6 and 13, 8 years. Such time as you have spent in custody, 460 days, will be deducted from the minimum term. Mohammed Karar and Bassan Karar. You, Mohammed Karar, have been convicted of 2 very serious offences against child EF. Conspiracy to rape her, which involved arranging for men to come and rape her, and trafficking her. Child EF had a particularly disrupted childhood, having been placed with various foster parents. You met her when she was under 13. You knew her true age. You groomed her so that you would have a hold over her. Wickedly, you turned her against her mother. You got her hooked on drugs, providing cannabis and cocaine. You had a complete disregard for her own welfare and treated her as if she was a commodity. From the time when child EF was 13, you started selling her to other men for sex. To use her words, this happened loads of times over the next few years. Sometimes you would take photos, presumably to entice further customers. Clearly, it was a commercial operation. You would actually ask customers whether they were satisfied. When she was 14 or 15, you started to instruct her to go to London. You'd make her meet men at Paddington Station and provide them with sex. This happened on 5 or 6 occasions. Even at the end of 2009, 2010, you were trying to lure child EF to so-called parties where no doubt you wished her to provide sexual services to other men. When she refused, you threatened both child EF and her mother. You terrified them. Over the phone, you threatened to kill them. Child EF was not then ready to expose what you'd been doing to her over the years, but at least the police were contacted to prevent this frightening harassment. You, Bassam Karar, were not involved in the trafficking of child EF. However, you have been convicted of a violent rape of her on a specific occasion at the Nanford house. In November 2006, when she was 14, you took her to Nanford House for sex. She agreed. There came a time she wanted to go. However, after taking cocaine, you would not let her go. She made it very clear she wanted to go home. Her mother would be worried. You insisted on further sex, knowing that she was no longer consenting. You subjected her to a prolonged assault involving sexual and physical violence, degradation and humiliation. In particular, you became very angry. You jumped on top of her, pulled her hair and forced her head onto your penis. You penetrated her vagina twice and ejaculated. At one stage, she could not breathe because your hands were tight around her neck. And she felt that she was being throttled. You told her you were going to kill her. You also pushed her in the shower and urinated upon her. No doubt because you wanted to punish her and humiliate her. Mohammed Karar and Bassam Karar, I now come to the dreadful offences you committed against child GH. You, Mohammed Karar, have been convicted of no less than 16 offences against child GH. These include 9 counts when she was under 13, 6 counts when she was well under 16, and 1 count when she was 17 and 18. Under 13. Count 23, rape of a child under 13, vaginal. Count 24, using an instrument with intent to procure a miscarriage. Count 25, rape, anal. Count 26, rape of a child under 13, vaginal rape by other men who came to the flat. Count 27, assault of a child under 13, insertion of handle of a baseball bat. Count 30, rape of a child under 13, High Wycombe and other places, anal rape. Count 31, conspiracy to rape a child under 13, agreement with Bassam that child GH be taken to various houses to be raped by various men. Count 32, arranging child prostitution with Bassam. Count 33, trafficking with Bassam. 13 or over. Count 28, conspiracy to rape, spit roasting. Count 35, conspiracy to rape, agreement with Bassam that child GH be taken to various houses and locations. Count 36, arranging child prostitution with Bassam. Count 37, rape, vaginal. Count 38, rape, anal. Count 40, supply controlled drug, Class A. Count 50, rape in 2011, when child GH was 17 or 18. Bassam Karar. Over and above the serious offence you committed against child EF, you yourself, often acting with your older brother, committed numerous offences upon child GH. 3 offences when she was under 13. Count 29, rape of a child under 13, vaginal. Count 31, conspiracy to rape a child under 13 with Mohammed taken to locations for sex with other men. Count 32, arranging child prostitution with Mohammed. 2 offences where her age is unclear, and I must assume she was 11 to 15. Count 33, trafficking. Count 28, conspiracy to rape, spit roasting. 3 offences when she was 13 or over. Count 35, conspiracy to rape with Mohammed. Count 36, arranging child prostitution. Count 39, rape. These occurred at the ages of 13, 14 and 15. You, Mohammed Karar, were introduced to child GH when she was only 11. It is clear from the video clip we have seen she was a small girl at the age of 12. You were in your 30s. You knew that both her parents had profound disabilities, and at a very early age she shouldered huge responsibility towards her parents. You would go home and smoke joints with her father, who no doubt would have no idea what you were doing to his daughter, including having sex with her at his home. You anally raped her when she was 11. After a period of months, when you groomed her, you were having regular oral, vaginal and anal sex with her. You duped her by telling her you'd take her to Saudi Arabia and marry her when she was 15. She became pregnant. Your reaction was to become angry with her and slap her. You took her to Reading so that an illegal abortion could be performed upon her at an underground so-called clinic. Clearly, this was highly dangerous to her health. As always, you had no regard to her welfare and the damage you were causing her. She became obsessed with you, and you exploited her. There came, at the time, before she was 13, that both of you, Mohammed and Bassam Karar, started to bring strangers to have sex with her. You, Bassam, would organise the sessions. Mohammed was closely involved and would be at most of these sessions. These occasions happened many times. You would make her act as a hostess at sex parties, no doubt charging for her services. If she did not want to have sex with the men, you both would get angry. She had to endure depraved sexual demands, including the acting out of weird sex fantasies and the insertion of objects in her vagina. If she kicked out, she would be restrained. If she said that she did not want to have sex, she said Mo and Bassam would get mad at me. You, Mohammed, made videos of child GH performing sex acts, no doubt with a view to selling her sexual services. You, Mohammed Karar, took her to various places to provide sex to others. A hotel in Bournemouth, a flat near a school in Oxford. She was taken to High Wycombe for sex on a regular basis. Both of you took her to High Wycombe for sex with others. Bassam took her 2 or 3 times without Mohammed. Sometimes there were 3 or 4 men at a session. Sometimes as many as 9 or 10. Child GH thought that Bassam was taking lots of phone calls in relation to the Wycombe trips, where there would be sex acts and sexual fantasies acted upon. Child GH would hear both Mohammed and Bassam speaking to customers over the phone before going to the Nanford for sex. She was taken to Nanford House over 50 times. The charge would vary according to the sex act you'd make her perform. Mainly Mohammed would take her, but Bassam took her more than a couple of times. Sometimes she would be taken to the Nanford 2 or 3 times per week. You, Mohammed Karar, prepared her for gang anal rape by using a pump to expand her anal passage. You subjected her to a gang rape by 5 or 6 men. At one point, she had 4 men inside her. A red ball was placed in her mouth to keep her quiet. Not only were you both involved in the commercial sexual exploitation of child GH, you also used her for your own self-gratification. You both raped her when she was under 13. When she was very young, although it is not clear whether she was under 13, you both raped her at the same time. Oral and vaginal and anal. It happened on more than one occasion. Mohammed Kara. On one occasion, when child GH was 12, after raping her, she threatened you with her lock knife. Your reaction was to pick up a baseball bat with a silver metal handle, strike her on the head with it, and then insert the baseball bat inside her vagina. You treated her as if she was your commodity. You branded her with your initial near her anal passage, using a hot hairpin. If child GH did not comply with your wishes, if you were not with other people, you would lose your temper with her. As part of the grooming, you would provide her with crack cocaine and injected child GH with heroin on numerous occasions. When she was not prepared to participate anymore, you would issue terrible threats. Your activities took a heavy toll upon her, both physically and mentally. In late 2010-2011, she phoned you. You invited her to come and see you. You said, "We'll sort it and make it better." Once there, you had an argument, and to exert your power and punish her, pulled down her trousers and raped her. Mohammed Kara. I take into account that you have no previous convictions for sexual offences. However, these are very grave offences. You exhibited exceptional depravity, both for your own sexual gratification and for your own commercial operations. Many of your activities involved planning. The sufferings of your two young, vulnerable victims were extreme and over a long period. I consider, on all of the information before me, including the pre-sentence report, that you do and will continue to represent a high risk of causing serious harm to young girls by the commission of further specified offences. Your offences do fall into the category where only a life sentence can be justified. Sentence. Counts 20, 31, 35. Life with a minimum term of 20 years imprisonment concurrent. That 20 years reflects the total criminality involved. It is the equivalent of a determinate sentence of 40 years. You will serve the minimum sentence less the time you have already spent in custody. It is only then that the parole board will be entitled to consider whether it is safe for you to be released. The sentences on the other counts will all be concurrent to the life sentence. Counts 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 20 years. Counts 37, 38 and 50, 17 years. Counts 21, 24, 32, 33, 36 and 40, 10 years. Bassam Kara. You have no conviction for sexual offences, and I take that into account. However, your offending involves two victims. Whilst you were not involved in the trafficking of child EF, you carried out a brutal and violent rape upon her when she was only 14 and very vulnerable, and you sought to humiliate her. On its own, that would attract a sentence of 17 years imprisonment following the guidelines. You were also well involved in both organising the commercial exploitation of child GH from when she was under 13, and you used her for your own sexual gratification by making her perform grotesque sex acts such as exhibited by count 28. I have to consider whether you meet the dangerousness criteria. I agree with the conclusion of the author of the pre-sentence report and upon all the material before, principally the evidence in this long trial. You do pose a serious risk of serious harm to young girls from the commission of further offences. Furthermore, looking at your offending, I am unable to say how long that risk will continue. I cannot say that it will be sufficiently reduced by the imposition of an extended sentence combined with a sexual prevention order. In my view, counts 31 and 35 are offences of truly exceptional gravity, and your overall offending does fall into the category where only a life sentence can be justified. The sentences of the court are counts 31, 35. Life sentence with a minimum term of 15 years. That is equivalent to a determinate sentence of 30 years. It means you will have to serve that minimum sentence less the time you have spent in custody, 460 days. Only then will the parole board be entitled to consider whether it is safe to release you. All other sentences are concurrent with the life sentences. Counts 22, 29, 39, 17 years, counts 28, 32, 20 years, counts 33, 36, 10 years. In respect of all defendants, there will be notification requirements for an indefinite period. The disclosure and barring service applies in all cases, which will prevent you from ever working with children. I wish to pay tribute to all 6 complainants and the members of their families who had to go through the ordeal of giving evidence in this long and difficult trial.